to our ministry page. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life and Love and Restoration. And this is Charles and Cherie Jackson Ministries. And hi, I'm your host for a motivational moment. My name is Cherie Jackson, and it's really wonderful to see everybody. We're going to be going live with a conversation with Mr. Tony Evans. You all know Mr. Tony Evans, and he had dealt with grief. He lost his wife to an illness, and we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to share this conversation, and afterwards we're going to share the video. I Hear the Call, which is our remix video. God is specifically calling on your life. And what my question to you is, do you hear the call that is on your life? And so we're going to share this video with Dr. Tony Evans and his special guest that's dealing with grief. And it's so amazing to hear the conversation when it comes from a man.
It was easy for me to believe that God was real because I saw the way that my mom and dad talked, and I saw the way that they lived. And I remember the summer before going to college, I was set to go walk on and play ball with my brother Sam, and that was where I was going to go. My dad really wanted me to go to Baylor, and 3 weeks after graduating high school, my parents took me and my 4 brothers and sisters to Nigeria. And while we were there, 4 days before we were getting ready to come back home, at 17 years old, we're driving down this dirt road, and our car gets a flat tire. Our driver steps out of the car, changes the flat tire. We're all out of the car, and before he gets in, 2 men come from out of nowhere with guns, and they shoot the guns up in the air, and they say, "Oh, y'all get down on the ground." So we're laying face down on the ground, right? Heart is beating as the bags in our car hit the ground. And as a 17-year-old kid, all I could think about was, I think I've wasted my life. That everything that I spent my life trying to work for, that with one bullet to the back of my head, it could all be taken. And that was a time where it was I did what anybody else does, and I bartered with God, right? I said, "Yo, God, if you save me, I will spend the rest of my life telling people how good you are." The men left. Our driver was nowhere to be found. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere, Nigeria, 2002, pre-cell phone. And through a series of events, God saved us. We got out. We left when we should. And before I went off to school, I was just reeling. And I just felt like, all right, Lord, you did what you said that you were going to do. And so from then on, it was just, I want to know God. I want him to be real. And I want everybody in my orbit to know him well. And that led me to Baylor, then Dallas Theological Seminary, then church planting in Atlanta, and then leaving the pastorate to spend my time writing and helping people work through grief and hope. And along the way, met and married my beautiful wife, Chandra, for 18 years, and we got an 8-year-old daughter, Ava. And so that's the long and short of it.
Wow, that's quite a story. That was quite an event to see your life go before you and not know how it's going to work out. And so, is it okay to barter with God?
Listen, I do not know. I know that I've come up short on my end of the bargain.
Most of us have.
Yeah, but he's been gracious.
Well, one of the great truths of Scripture is that when we are faithless, he is faithful.
Absolutely.
So trusting in the faithfulness of God, even when we're not batting 100.
Absolutely. Right.
It's pretty critical.
Yeah.
It's pretty critical.
Amen.
So this thing about grief, how did you get into that lane and begin to develop this focus?
Unwillingly, right? Grief is it's that club that nobody wants to be a part of, but you're forced into it. For me, it was April 14th, 2015, the worst day of my life still. You remember the worst day of your life because you remember the unimportant things, right? It was a Tuesday. I was in Orlando, Florida, getting ready to speak at a conference and sitting at a Longhorn Steakhouse when I'm getting these calls from my mother. I go out, I answer the phone call in that humid Orlando heat, and she's having a hard time getting a hold of my brother Sam. So I call around, I call my god brother, and I hear him say that my brother passed out. And so I said, wake him up. But what he actually said was Sam passed away. And I just remember just me and everybody waiting in line at that Longhorn Steakhouse, learning that my brother Sam died at the same time. And I just kept on saying, he's dead. He's dead. And then I had to, I said the word Sam's dead 10 times to my 5 family members, because every time I said it, the first time they said what? And it's just and I was a wreck for the next 2 weeks. And this was 8 weeks before we planted a church in Atlanta. I was 30 years old, a couple of months away from turning 31. And at the time, I hadn't had anybody that lost a brother. I didn't know what to do about my grief. I was surrounded by people that tried to rush me towards hope. And I started a church 8 weeks later, and I kept saying I was good and pretending I was good. And a year later, my life was falling apart to the point where the friends that I had just had to say, hey, John, I think you pastoring and helping people put their life together is the anesthetic that is numbing you to the fact that yours is falling apart.
Wow.
And for the first time, I sat down and, C.S. Lewis says, I sat with my anger long enough to realize that her real name was grief. And that started my journey. Convinced April 14th would remain the worst day of my life, unredeemable. Nothing would change it.
Wow. You used the phrase, I think it's the only time I've ever heard the phrase, grief club.
Right.
Grief a club.
Yeah.
A club that all of us, unfortunately, have to face in some form, some way, because life throws those at us, And the closer it gets to us, our loved ones, our family members, the greater the impact. And then you introduce this whole thing of dichotomy. You're helping other people when you've not fully dealt with your own situation. Let's talk about the sophisticated term may be the dialectic of grief, or the tension points of trying to minister and help other people. Was that more of an escape? I mean, you said another thing. I mean, you got in your just casual conversation, you're dropping bombs here. This thing of trying to rush you to hope. Rush you to hope.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everybody needs hope, but you can be forced there when you're not ready to receive it. Talk a little bit about that. Okay.
Yeah, this is it. It is not that the things that people told me about the resurrection and hope and that Sam is there and I will see him one day. It's not that it was untrue. I feel like it was under true, right? Like
under true.
Okay. So this is what I mean. Like, it is to rush people to hope is as dangerous as an overeager grill master serving chicken. Have you ever been at a cookout and there's a guy and he's just ready to get things off the grill, and it's, no. It's not that what you served me is uncooked. it's undercooked, and you give me that pink chicken, and it's going to hurt everybody that ingests it. They're going to throw it up because it's not done yet. And that's what I feel like when we try to rush people towards hope, we haven't let them or us sit long enough to process the reality, right? That God can be good and I can be sad at the same time.
You're actually giving people permission to be sad, and to let that grief process, I love illustrations,
Yes.
I love illustrations, and you just dropped another bomb on me. That undercooked meat can hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
Not because it's not good.
Right.
It's just not ready.
That's it.
So this whole thing of getting people ready and walking them through their pain, their hurt, their tears, their longings, their disappointments with circumstances, and maybe even with God,
right.
That God allowed it, didn't stop it.
Right.
That process, help us understand how you walk through it and how you're now helping other people to kind of take that journey.
Yeah. One of the most important books for me, one of the only books I could read at the time, was Ecclesiastes. This is why context matters, right? Like, we come to the Bible as we are with the pains that we have. My brother, Sam, was the closest family member that I had. Mm-hmm. I was frustrated with God. I was mad with God. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to start to read the Bible. Let me just start from the top. By the 4th chapter, you have 2 brothers and one brother kills his brother. I wanted to throw up when I read that. I just couldn't. And so I'm like, all right, let me just keep on. And then you've got Jacob and Esau, and then you've got Joseph, and all of this tension with brothers. It was hard for me. So I went to Ecclesiastes, and it was the most hopeful book that I read. The opening lines filled me with hope. And the folks are like, I don't think that you know what hope is, right?
Right.
And it just starts off and it says, meaningless. Everything's meaningless. And why it filled me with hope was that I know who wrote that book, or at least who they want us to think like wrote that. Like, it is this Solomon-esque guy who had it all. And that's when it hit me, right? I felt like that, but because I lost it all, I was in a valley. He felt like that, and he had it all. We had arrived at the same emotional place, even though circumstantially we were apart. And that was the thing that helped me see maybe my depression isn't circumstantial. And if my depression isn't circumstantial, maybe hope and joy isn't either, right? Maybe nothing in my life has to change, and everything about my life can change. Maybe tragedy doesn't ruin anybody. Hopelessness does. And so as I read and journeyed through that book, it was just the reality of, there's a guy, Francis Weller, just so wise in this grief space. And he brings the truth that is in Ecclesiastes, just this concept that you have to sit with as you walk through these gates of grief. And the first one is that we all have to sit with the fact, like, everything in this world that we love, we will lose.
Say that again.
Everything in this world that you love, you will lose. That is gravity. That is fact. You cannot argue. It's going to happen. And when you first hear it, it is cinder blocks on your ankles, and you feel like your soul just sinks. But the goal of that phrase is not to make your soul sink. It's to make us sober. It's to remind us that these beautiful moments in life are as fragile as they are precious. It's meant to make us a better, more present version of ourselves. And as I journeyed through,
No, you.
I saw it. Yeah.
I'm feeling. I'm hearing you and feeling you at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm emoting with you now.
As I journeyed through all of that, it was those things that like changed me, right? Mm-hmm. So My brother was the closest family member I had. As I've worked through kind of what's going on these past few years, there's a lot of grief that I have in that I can get so wrapped up in the things that I do that I am not the best son or sibling. But Sam was like my gateway and my key. So when Sam passed, I know that pain that I felt. And I think most times when a family member passes, you want to draw closer to the ones that are still there. The opposite took place for me. I instinctively distanced myself from the rest of my family because I felt on the inside, man, if it hurt this much to lose him, I do not want to go through that same pain when all of them go, because I know that they'll go. And I thought I was protecting myself from future pain. But as time went on, I learned that I was robbing myself of present joy, that I wouldn't get to any of their funerals and feel like, man, great job that you didn't feel what you felt with Sam. I think I would get to all of them and feel a deep sense of regret. And so it is like this sobering truth that is meant to change how we live here and now. It's meant to make us present, right? Whenever I'm with my daughter and my nose is buried in my phone, grief just slithers up your spine and it whispers in your ear, everything in this world that you love, you will lose. Take your nose out of your phone and nestle it into your daughter. And
I think that diamond truth, that's the value I give to the statement that you just made.
Yes.
Everything that you hold dear in this world, you will lose. That truth and the way you've tied it to scripture, your journey through Ecclesiastes makes the Bible come alive. The Bible is no longer a dead book because it's touching real life.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's one of the things in our Unbound series that we're doing, tracing the journey of the Bible. One of the fascinating realities is seeing how much the movement of the Word of God was integrated with life, people, problems, chaos, confusion, war, just all kinds of angst in people and circumstances, cultures, personalities. And yet the Bible is emerging in that context, not in some theoretical ivory tower. So when we read it and we read it like that, it has the same effect. It becomes alive because it is a living book coming out of living reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is the biggest problem, right? Death is the biggest problem. Everything in this world that you love, you will lose. Period. End of sentence. Everybody agrees on that truth and on that fact.
Hello, everybody. This is Cherie J. And as we continue a few more minutes of this conversation, one of the questions that I really would like to throw at you is that when someone is dealing with a loss or a death, do you give them time to grieve? Do you give them time to deal with the loss? Sometimes we're so wrapped up in the healing process that we want people to now just write a book. Let's say it out loud. Let's get on Facebook Live and let's talk about it. And really, depending on, no way that you lose a person in death is going to be fun. There's never going to be they died happily. That's like the hurt and pain that comes with the death is enough in itself. But depending on the type of death that your loved one had, they could have had a bad car accident or shot or stabbed or something very violent. It's going to be very hard to deal with how they died first. And a lot of times when we find out that someone has passed or they was killed in a car wreck or they was somewhere, and the first thing you will know is what happened. It's common, you know what I'm saying? It's common to feel that way, but that ain't the right way to start off. I think the beginning is helping the person deal with the loss first. they're not 9 times out of 10 had to go view that body or had to identify the body. And it becomes a shock to the system, a shock to the body, especially if it's your child or your husband or your mom or dad. I mean, just really anybody that you love. But just imagine having to go to that morgue or go and having to view that body in that tragic situation. And it becomes where we are so wrapped up in had happened and you want to know all the gooey details, and nobody is prepared to tell you, not even doctors, when they even come and bring it to you. They're not even prepared to tell you or to show you. So as we continue this conversation, I think it's real important to let it be known that, you know, losing someone to death is going to hurt you in a lot of ways. The way you feel about losing your mom is going to be different than losing, you know, a cousin. Or if you lose your child, you're going to feel different losing someone else because you had that child. You know, your mom had you. There's a tie there. There's, you know, but you can have love for people. I mean, I've seen people lose over a movie star or a superstar, a rock star, and they just tore all the pieces. Grief and emotion happens to you in various ways, and you can't predict how someone loves someone or what that loss is going to do to them. But as we continue this conversation, I just want you to remember that grief is real, and you got to give people time to deal with how it happened, when it happened, why it happened, before you start asking questions and wanting them to now become a speaker, wanting them to move so fast. You know, God is the only one that's going to lift you up and have you do whatever it is he's asked you to do. A lot of times you're moving on what man says. And God is saying a lot of times we got to be still. In your hurt and grief, he don't want you to run to alcohol. He don't want you to run to a cigarette. He don't want you to run to a marijuana or a blunt. He doesn't want you to run to the person that's going to gossip and tell everything that you just said. Ain't going to pray. Ain't going to stop you from talking about it. Because, see, that's how you can tell a kingdom person. And this is true. You can tell a kingdom person. Because when you start to babble and go off what God says you should be doing about your business, they're going to stop you. They're going to say, hold on, sweetheart, that's a little bit too much information. I don't need to know all that. Let's just stop and pray. So I pray today that you get around some people that when you start babbling and talking too much about you and your hurt and your pain and what happened and how it happened, and knowing that people just going to go and take it and smear it in the mud, you're going to have to be still and let God do it. Don't turn to the cigarette. Don't turn to the drugs. See how your body really going to deal with the pain, because guess what? Somebody else going to die. Somebody else going to lose their life to natural causes, to cancer, to, you know, and we pray these things away. But guess what? These things, the devil still has a way in the world because of the things that we say and we speak that is over our life. So God just wants me to remind you today that when God doesn't stop the pain, you got to ask him.
And so this is what changed it for me. And then Christianity comes in. And I think about the Gospel of John, right? Jesus deals with death 3 times. The very first time, he stops a premature funeral. God comes, says, my son's getting ready to die. Jesus says, your son will live. And then Lazarus is getting ready to die. And Jesus doesn't heal him from far off like he did that guy. He lets him die, and then he goes and he starts to raise him from the dead. And then the third time, Jesus doesn't spare himself from death, but he shares in the death that we'll all share. And this is what death does, okay? There's a neuroscientist, Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor, and she says, you do not move through the world as you see the world. You move through the world as you remember the world. So it's this, you walk through your house, if the lights are off, you can still make your way and you know how to avoid tables and things like that. If one day you wake up and you trip and you fall and you expect to hit a dining table and it's not there, you're shocked by the absence because you remember that it's there, but now it's not there. And so what your brain does is your brain is a GPS, And it takes time to update. When our loved ones are here, it is a through street.
Mm-hmm.
When they die, it is a cul-de-sac. And it takes your brain time to update, to be reminded that when you send that text, they're not going to send a text back.
Well, now that's another way of looking at GPS right there.
Listen, right.
I mean, that's a different take on GPS, yeah.
But it's when Jesus dies, the disciples view that tomb as a cul-de-sac. I can't believe he's gone. And they feel that everything in this world that you love, you will lose. And they experience a depth of grief that we all do. But then Jesus raises from the dead. And for the first time, the cul-de-sac is turned back into a through street.
Mm-hmm.
His death is one of a kind. Resurrection is the first of its kind. And that truth deals with the concept of death in the way that nobody else does. And so you have this group of people that can live life in this. And that was what did it for me, right? That there is this sense in which everything in this world that you love, you will lose, and the rest of the world, period, full stop.
Wow. Well, let me personalize the tension points of what you're sharing now. When I lost my late wife in 2019.
What was her name?
Lois. We have this growing ministry, this dynamic ministry, this exploding ministry, and this great loss. And they're happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
And trying to navigate keeping the train moving and grieving. Her loss was like the 8th loss in my family in the 2-year period of time. And so trying to navigate that as you tried to navigate, because you went to pastor, so handling the inside while you're still functioning on the outside and trying to walk those things side by side. Talk about that.
Yeah.
That point of tension.
Yeah. I think the point of tension came from me because I misunderstood what grief was, right? Metaphors matter. They are important. They are how we see the world. They are at the heartbeat of how I feel like you've helped so many, right? And when it comes to grief, bad metaphors for grief are not just unhelpful, they are harmful because they give people the only thing in the world that is worse than real pain, and that is false hope. This is what I mean. The reason why we try to run through and we try to go on is because it's been ingrained in us that grief is some kind of journey. The problem with that metaphor is journeys start and they end.
Mm-hmm.
Grief starts and it does not have an earthly end. And it's a cruel thing to send somebody in search of light at the end of a closed tunnel. So we go through and we move. We hear things like 5 stages of grief, not knowing that Dr. Elizabeth
Kubler-Ross
yeah, created what was called the 5 stages of dying. She studied terminally ill patients that were on their way to death, not the people that they left behind. She spent her dying breath saying, no. This never should have been imported to grief as some end. Like, this is a custom suit made for breathless bodies. So people find themselves in this place where they're like, oh, I haven't moved through. And you're not supposed to move through, right?
There is a freedom in that statement, because when you tell me it's okay not to conclude.
Yes.
when you have freed me up to feel that it's okay. I'm not supposed to just close this thing out and lock it down.
Never.
That opens me up to keep living.
Yes.
And not feel like I have living lost.
Yes. And so with that, I think it's more helpful to think of grief not as a journey, but a language. The goal of a language is not to finish. The goal of a language is to become fluent. It is for the purpose of connection. Language deals with what I feel like is the true danger, the true malady, I think, that grief causes, right? That it's not just the loss. It's not the initial loss. It's the eventual loneliness. And I think I spent my time trying to work through processing the loss and getting to a place where I don't feel the loss. And I did not realize that, no, it was actually the loneliness and the isolation of feeling like everybody had words, but all their words were the wrong ones. And I felt by myself and alone. And that I think when we realize that grief changes how we live, how we speak, how we think, how we relate, then it starts to do things to us. Like, most 99% of the time when you talk to somebody that has lost somebody else, Dr. Evans, they're going to use a proper title for the person that they lost, and they won't use their names. They will say, I lost my brother. I lost my wife. I lost my mom. And I've learned that the only time it is polite to interrupt somebody when they talk is when they say, I lost my wife. And you say, what was her name?
What was her name?
Because, our loved ones.
That's what you did with me.
That's what I did with you.
Oh, you just made me a client.
Listen to what I'm saying.
I didn't even know it. Okay.
But
yeah.
When you do that, people smile a bit and their eyes go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then you ask, where did your eyes go? Mm-hmm. Would you tell me about them? And you find that to be done with our grief is to close the door on our love. And I do not want to close the door on my love. I want people to, I want to be able to talk about my loved ones. I want them to meet them and to know them.
And just on a whole personal note, 2 years ago, I got remarried to Carla. I'll give her name. Okay. And her husband died on their way to my wife's funeral. He had a heart attack.
Oh my.
He used to work for me, and they actually met at our church, and then he went to pastor in Atlanta. And
Dr. Robert Crummy. Oh, I knew Robert.
Dr. Robert Crummy. Okay. And a couple of years later, I ran into her and we met, and that led to where we are today. But what you have reminded me of in our conversation is we will often sit down and we will reminisce by name, Lois and Robert. And now that I'm thinking about it and reflecting on it, when we're reminiscing by names, we're keeping something alive that would be dead in our minds if we did not give life to the reality of that. And to the ongoing reality, since they're both with the Lord. We have, in fact, she pulled out a picture when they were at our conference of the four of us together and the two of them together. They were both sets of pictures, and we were looking at the pictures and reminiscing about life. It gave life to something that you would tend to run from. And so it's a very dynamic existence.
Yeah. That if Carla, if she's ever going to know you fully, she's got to know Lois and the impact that she had on you, that if you're ever going to know her fully. Yeah. I have very dear friends in New York, Jordan and Jessica Rice. They're 44, both of their second marriage, because they were tragically widowed in their 20s.
Wow.
Jessica's spouse died 2.5 months into marriage. Jordan's spouse, 10 months in, doctor comes in and says, pulls him out and says, she's got a form of brain cancer so rare, I had to Google the pronunciation before I walked in the door. 10 months later, she's gone. Jordan and Jessica start to date other people. They date other people and they say, sorry for your loss. I don't know what to say. And then after a time it goes, you sure do talk about them a lot. And is there any room for me? And the relationship ends. Jordan and Jessica meet each other. And for the first time, they meet somebody else fluent in widow.
Fluent in widow. Okay.
And the conversation changes. Sorry for your loss to, how would you tell me a story about your love? I want to know, Jerron. I want to know, Danielle. And what you shared is the exact same thing that they should. And this is, yeah.
And giving people permission to do it.
Yes, yes.
That you don't have to hold this in. What we are talking about now is not only the giving permission for the person with the loss, but the person's helping the people with the loss to help them better to walk through that. Let's talk about that for a moment. Okay. The people who want to help don't know how to help. Yeah. Help them help.
Okay. These are the two things that I think will help change people. The very first one we talked through, interrupt. If somebody uses a proper title to talk about,
just like you interrupted me,
just like I did that.
Right, okay.
What was their name? And then from there, the main thing that people need to keep in their mind is this: punctuation is some of the most important things that you keep in your mind. Most times when people die, we think that the best way to help is that the would-be comforter spends their time explaining a thing, trying to rush them to hope, or exclaiming a thing. They're in a better place and all that. And there's a time and place for that. But their statements are full of periods and exclamation marks. When at the end of the day, what I found, what helps the griever more than you know, is not the words that come from you. It is the words that are trapped in them. And that comes with questions from you. What were they like? Can you tell me about that? How did they shape you? I want to hear about them. I want you to talk to them. And you wouldn't be surprised because you've gone through this, but people that have never lost somebody close to them would be surprised at how little people ask about our loved ones and how little we have the opportunity to talk and to share. And it's those stories that remind us of them and how we've been changed and how we've been shaped. And so I would say proper titles, interrupt, ask them for specific names, and be mindful of your punctuation. Ask more questions than you give statements. And
Hey everybody, this is Cherie Jackson with another motivational moment. Is this good or what? And this is not about pointing the finger or saying you didn't do this or you didn't do that or that's not how you do it, because truth and wisdom and knowledge is not about a fault game. Truth, knowledge, and wisdom is about, okay, I see how I haven't been. Because obviously they've done something, which is why you're around people, you feel comfortable talking about things. And then sometimes you are closed off and you don't talk about it. So what a kingdom person needs to do is ask more questions. I always say to my husband, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you got to know which ones to ask, because all of them don't always apply at that time. But one of the things I used to always say to my husband when it comes to, we learn about a lot of things about our past. When you get with people or you're around people and you get to know people, you learn a lot about what they did in school, what they did when they went off to college maybe, or certain jobs they do, and relationships and who you was with. And, we ask a lot of questions about a lot of things that really sometimes aren't as significant than the things that have changed your life traumatically, and you never ask those questions. And in a person's healing, and what I'm learning even about this gentleman who is sharing the loss of his brother, and being that his brother was his right-hand man, like certain things that he didn't do, his brother did. Certain things his brother didn't do, he did. It was like a bounce. But when you lose that, and God separates that, allows that separation to happen, and the things that happen in his life caused the reaction to want God, because as he stated before, he first distanced himself and was a loner, which caused him to really become selfish because he didn't want to feel that way again. And at the end of the day, we're going to feel that way over and over and over. We're going to lose people all the time. And if you're the kind of person in your kingdom, you have God in your life, you're going to love a lot of people. You're not just going to love your mom. You're not just going to love your brother. You know, the love don't stop there. You know, love is going to happen. You're going to love people you work with. You're going to love people you socialize with, fellowship with. You know, people that you go to the same restaurant and stores all the time, even though it's a different kind of love, you have a love for them because of the personality and what you bring when that person sees you, or you may see them and they see that light. But one of the things that's so important in getting through grief is, like he just said, it's not a period. It is never going to go away. That person is never going to come back. And it's okay to ask about them. You know, the only time we really think about a loved one that we've lost is Memorial Day, or if they were a veteran, Veterans Day, or, you know, Christmas may come around and you miss them from a certain point of view, you know. But we never have conversations about the hurt or what you went through or that person's loved one. You know, my husband has a son that he lost his son's mother. His son was 2. And one of the things that got me was that I was curious, you know, like how it happened and how he felt, you know, knowing that, you know, this child has to be raised without a parent, you know. And we sometimes, you know, kids lose dads a lot, and it's mainly a lot of mothers that raise their children. But to be a dad and, you know, and lose the mother of your child, and then your child, you know, has to grow up without its mother, you know, it's a different hurt. And a lot of times we don't think about the kids. We don't think about anything. Just the conversation stops, because when you're in relationships, you know, people that are selfish are only going to think about themselves and what they can get out of it. And they could care less what you've been through. And that could be a lot of reasons why you run from the calling that's on your life, is because you haven't dealt with a lot of things, and enough people haven't asked enough questions to help you deal with the situation. So you're still in brand new mode. Like, to be honest with you, you're still in brand new mode. And no matter how long you're in a relationship, I think it's vital that you ask questions. Like he said, ask them when you're talking. They say, well, you know, I was married and, you know, I lost 2 kids. Well, before they go any further, ask what their names were. Because what that's going to do is send you off this spiral to shelter yourself into what happened to them, into going into what was great about them. Like it'll totally change the conversation versus, you know, you had a child and your child died of crib death. Well, if you just let me carry on, I'm going to constantly be talking about the death part and how they died, the how question, how. But if you get away from the how question and ask me, well, what were their names? You know, their name was, you know, and you give them the name. Then they're like, well, wow, you know, did you name them after a grandmama, or, you know what I'm saying? Or did you, oh, you had a cousin, or I got a cousin that got that name. Like, it's like when you carry on the conversation, grief is never going to have a period. To give false hope and tell somebody, oh, eventually you'll get over it, you'll stop thinking about it, is a lie straight from hell. It's not going to go away. And so the sooner you realize that, one day someone's going to grieve over you. One day someone's going to grieve over me. And I want my legacy to be where when you ask the question, you're going to know who Cherie Williams Jackson is, because you're going to remember Cherie sang. You're going to remember the things that you did that made a pillar. And so the people that were left behind when they go on, they went on, but what they did still exists. And so don't be afraid from time to time to ask somebody, you know, especially those that have lost a child. You got to think about, we around you and your children. Some of y'all have children that were the same age as our children. Do you not ever wonder how I might be thinking being around your daughter, and my daughter is dead? And my daughter might have been the same age as your daughter. And then your daughter start having children and make you a grandmama. And then you think about me like, wow, your daughter's not here, you know, and I can see them two running around together, you know, and I wonder how many kids she would have had. The more you help me dream about them and think about them, is going to help me look at the healing side, because my child died as a baby. So I never get to look past what she was like in middle school and high school, but I get to look at what she could have been and what she would have done through your children. That's why sometimes when I love on your kids and I spend time with your kids, is because I know that's what I would have done to my daughter. So as we get ready to close and continue this conversation, we just want to thank you and understand that we're bringing the Root of My Pain encounters and conversations so that we can help people understand the grieving process. And it doesn't end, but as you continue your life, it's okay to ask questions about them because they did.
I think that you'll see, right, people find themselves at this place where they're putting things together and being able to live and embody a kind of hope that they didn't even know that they had on the inside of them.
Our faith, we're told to attach our faith to our realities, our belief system. The difference between sustaining faith and surviving faith. I mean, God, I need you now to make it because I don't think I can make it.
Right.
Versus the faith that keeps on allowing God to live in the moment that we are going through. Shape that for me from your perspective.
Yeah. So it's this, right? When it comes to this kind of grief, there are three different sites or three different ways that we see things, right? One is, our foresight, and we'll go through a loss and we want God to make the future clear. God, I want to know exactly how you're going to use this to shape me. And the future is always blurry. So long as we see the shape of hope, then that's fine. Inside, I think we tend to think that, all right, we have to piece together present puzzle pieces to put it together and to find this hope. But God works in mysterious ways. And we, especially in our grief, are not Sherlock Holmes. We're not going to piece together present. It is this incredible gift of hindsight. And so what I mean is the thing in our grief that we need more than anything else is a type of patience. It is a type of, God, I do not know what you're doing, but Lord, just help me to make it to the point where you help me see a trace of what it is that you're trying to do, and things turn the corner. And then I think at that point, things change. This is what I mean. Practical story. April 14th, 2015, my brother dies. Me and my wife have no kids at this time. We are grieving unexplained infertility. 4 days ago, we had an adoption that failed. 4 days later, Sam dies. I am a wreck. I do not remember much of the next 2 years except for feeling very insecure about everything I thought about God's goodness and wisdom and kindness. And I was surrounded by a group of people that were just patient with me. April 14th, 2017. It is a Good Friday, 2 years to the day that Sam died. Our daughter is 8 days old in the ICU, NICU. She was born, on April the 6th, breathing tubes all in her. And the thing that you remember about the anniversary of the worst day of your life is you secretly hope that the worst day of your life stays the worst day of your life because you never want any other day to take first place. I remember what it was like. Good Friday, sitting there with my daughter. I've got to drive back to preach. And my wife lets me hold her for the 60 minutes that I can have her out of there. And I cannot sing at all, Dr. Evans, but I remember the precise tones and pitches of all of the beeps that reminded me that my daughter was still breathing on that machine. And I remember the way that my heart sank when all the makings of another April 14th tragedy began. Before I knew it, the doctor pulls her out of my hands. And all I hear is those beeps go deafeningly silent. And he places her back in my arms. And he says, today's the day your daughter's going to breathe on her own. 2 years to the day my brother took his final breath. My daughter takes her first unassisted breath, and it is on Good Friday, a day where we call it good because joy. And that was I don't remember much of the 2 years in between Sam's death and that date, but I remember vividly everything that's going on with that. And that was the thing that God used for me to turn that corner. And so what I do is I constantly find ways to share that story, because stories are the thing that help us hold on to virtue and hope. And the Bible is this story that's meant to remind us, right, that Toni Morrison calls it memory. And it is this act of reclaiming these past narratives to take control of our present and ongoing trauma.
One of the things that's said about Scripture is that the Scripture was written to give us hope. And in our conversation today about loss and grief and cul-de-sacs and freeways,
easy music.
Hey, you guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. We're going to get ready for the new video, I Hear the Call remix, better known as Cherie J. know it's the master producer. God bless y'all. Calling me. I hear that calling me, it's calling me, calling you. I hear that calling, yeah, it's calling me, calling you. Now it's 3:00 in the morning, yes, and I just can't get back to sleep. And I know it's God calling, wanting me to get this message. Pray for His people. Hey, yeah. Calling me. Oh, I hear the Lord. Hey, calling. I hear God calling. Yeah. And it told me to take a chance. Now it's 5:00 in the morning, and I'm praying and I'm praising, seeking your face. God has the answer. And He told me to take a chance and learn His ways. Hey. Oh, I hear the call take a chance. I have some problem, and it taught me to take a chance and learn His way. He's calling on me and you for the kingdom. Calling on you. Greater is He than he that is of the world. Greater in me. I had some problems, but it taught us to take a chance and learn His way. Oh, hear the call, Lord. Deep down inside, I feel it. Hey, oh, you pick me up, Jesus. Turn me around, yeah. And it taught me to take a chance. Step out on we had some problems, God can solve them, yeah. Can you hear it?